The lights, can we have some lights on? Which develops polymers that enable vaccines to survive without refrigeration. It won the World Biomaterials Congress's top research award and was named NASA's top 10 new tech companies. Oh my goodness. The company is successfully operating today, and Nanxi is the chairperson. For her community service, Nanxi received a Mobilize.org National Leadership Award. She was named to Forbes 30 Under 30 Persons list and one of Fortune magazine's top 10 most promising women entrepreneurs. I'm going to need to go in for humility counseling right now. I feel so irrelevant. Nanxi double majored at UC Berkeley and is a concert pianist, and if that's not enough, she was Miss Oakland of 2011. She is the CEO and co-founder of digital display company Plug Incorporated, as I said. Please welcome our second keynote speaker, the incredible, amazing Nanxi Liu.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. All of my real friends know that I'm actually a really big slacker. Like, I spent most of this weekend actually just watching Netflix. So it's okay. So I want to gear this presentation actually towards all of the young folks here. How many of you are in high school or middle school? Raise your hands. All right, how many of you all have kids in high school or college or middle school? Okay, all right, so this is for you all. And I was really bad at listening to lectures when I was in college, so I'm going to try to make this really interesting, and if at any point you have a question, just raise your hand and interrupt me. I want to make this as interesting for you as possible. So, the topic that we're going to talk about is starting a business in college. But it's not really just about starting a business in college. It's actually about starting a business in general and what that means. And so I narrowed it down to starting a business, but it could mean anything, pursuing whatever you want. So I went to UC Berkeley. And when I was at Berkeley, I actually went in as a nuclear engineering major, and then realized that I wasn't smart enough, like Crystal, to go and pursue a PhD in nuclear engineering. So then I went and actually then got a certificate in industrial engineering and then double majored in business and political economy. But what I learned there is that regardless of what you study, it's actually how you spend your time that's more important. So right now, I am the founder and CEO of Plug, and I'll tell you a little background about Plug. So you'll actually see Plug being used all around the different places. You go to Staples Center or Dodger Stadium, or inside of many corporate offices. The jumbotrons, the digital displays, they all need the software to manage it, and that's what our software does. So you plug in this little device to any display, and then you can remotely control it, show interactive content such as social media, dashboards, and then you can also build apps for displays inside of businesses. For our clients, they'll manage thousands of displays at once using our software, and you'll find us being used at over 1,000 companies in 12 different countries and languages. We have offices in 6 different countries. But to go back, this was totally, not something I planned. If somebody had told me that I was going to start this software company that has to deal with displays when I was in high school, I would have laughed. But it's to demonstrate that whatever the path is, there's a reason, there's an excitement. So I'm going to go in and share a little bit of background on why we went and did this. And of course, we got some interesting awards. So one of the key lessons that I learned growing up was that you have to do the work. No one will do the work for you. And that's so incredibly important because all of you here, you had amazing parents and you have an amazing support network. And that already puts you ahead of 99% of people. The your parents supporting you to be part of the Youth Science Center already makes you have a huge advantage over anyone else. But then when you go on to go into college or to whatever you pursue, you have to rely on yourself, and that's the most important. You have to do the work, and it's going to be really hard work. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background why that meant a lot to me, that I couldn't rely on anybody else but myself to go and do the work. So this is where I grew up. So I grew up in rural China. I was born in Zhenjiang, Jiangsu province, and then I lived with my grandparents in Jiangxi province. My parents had went to Europe to go get their graduate degrees. They couldn't afford to take me with them, so I just lived with my grandparents. And I actually visited them a couple of years ago, so all my relatives still live there. And it's just a really interesting experience because it's completely different from the kind of life that I live. And what it taught me is regardless of what kind of position you are in and where you start, it's about what you do to get to where you want. So it doesn't matter where you start. So when I immigrated to the US, I was 5 years old, and I was given kind of this one opportunity to do something interesting. And it was, of course, fulfilling the Asian stereotype, piano. But what was interesting is that my parents actually wasn't the one that told me to do piano. Somehow, I guess I just like naturally had the gene to say I want to play piano. And so my parents got this $100 piano from a garage sale. And that's how I started learning piano. I was just playing on this really old piano. The teacher that I studied from charged us $7 an hour, but to my parents, that was a lot of money. We lived in subsidized housing, and it's the story that a lot of immigrant families share, is that you come to the US and you really start from the very, very beginning. And so I experienced that growing up, but I knew because I was given this one opportunity, it was something, piano was something that actually taught me of hard work, and you have to just rely on yourself and do the hard work, which means that practice meant that I was going to get better. And it's something really interesting that as a kid, I sort of accidentally learned. Practice makes perfect. I know for all the kids now that you're like, oh my gosh, rolling your eyes. But I can tell you that if you give me anyone in this room for me to teach piano to, I can make them good at piano. All they have to do is promise that they'll practice 30 minutes a day. And I guarantee you'll be a good piano player. And so, of course, when I was thinking about going to college, my parents couldn't have money to afford to pay for college. So I had to figure out ways to make money. And so that's when I had to get really creative. When you have limited resources, I feel like it's one of the best ways to actually push yourself to figure out new things to do. And so one of the ways I realized is I'll just take what I'm sort of good at and then try to monetize it. And so of course, I monetized piano. And so I had won a bunch of scholarships and competitions from piano. And that was a great way because my parents had probably invested thousands of dollars in piano lessons through the years. So finally I was able to tell them my senior year when I had won first in Colorado State, I was like, hey, finally, now you don't have to pay for the first year of college. It's paid for from piano. But I also want to demonstrate, not only is it important that we focus on one thing, I actually think it's really important for us to get involved in lots of different things. And I think that helps each of the activities we do. So whenever somebody is like, I want to do a bunch of different things, but I don't have the time for it, I disagree. I think that if we wanted to do anything, we have the time for anything. And part of the importance of that is actually meaning that you have to start early and do as much as possible early. So because all of these young folks here, you are in middle school, you are in high school right now, this is the perfect opportunity for you to explore anything that you want. And you have the time to do it. So hopefully you'll never tell your parents, oh, I want to do this activity, but I don't have time. Yes, you do. You can have time. It means spending less time on Snapchat. It means spending less time on Instagram. I have a 14-year-old little sister. I am the tiger sister, and this is exactly what I tell her. So I'll pretend like this presentation is almost, for her, these are the things I would tell her, and I constantly do tell her, which is that you have the time to do anything that you want and maximize that time. So to give you an example, and the reason I'm starting out describing the story in high school is that you have to just start early. So in high school, I also then got involved as a cheerleader. So I was on the US cheerleading team. But I then also was really interested in government, so I became the youngest legislative intern for the Colorado State Legislature. They weren't taking interns at the time, but what I did is I literally went to the Colorado State Capitol building, had my resume as a 16-year-old, and started just going to all the different senators and representatives' offices, asking them if they would take an intern. And finally, the Speaker of the House, at the time, Andrew Romanoff, decided, okay, all right, I'll take a risk on this 16-year-old. I actually think he thought I was in college. I didn't tell him I wasn't. And so I started as an intern there on the weekends. And then I also ran then for Colorado Youth Governor and served as Colorado Youth Governor. And then, of course, you have to do the volunteer work. And then, of course, also doing pageants to pay for college. So all of this is to say that you have to know I am such a big slacker. Like, I literally still had tons of times to hang out with my friends, but it's about time management, and it's about just trying as many things as possible while you're young, because it's the least risky time for you to do anything. The younger you are, the more things that you can try, and it doesn't really matter. It's your time to explore anything you want. And then, okay, of course I'm telling you the things that worked out. But these are all the things that I tried that I failed at, that I was horrible at. I didn't make the volleyball team. I didn't get into French club. I tried choir almost every single year I was in high school, and I'm just a horrible singer and always got rejected. Or they would put me to like have like one line in the choir. I didn't make it onto the track and field team. I didn't get into First Aid Club Theater. I tried Kung Fu for a year and just realized I preferred doing ballet, and those two weren't going well together. So this is also to say that even if the more things you try, the more you'll realize what works, what you're good at, and then what you're not good at. And again, starting earlier is the best. And so my key lesson in high school that I kind of accidentally learned is just to practice, start early, and then get used to giving 100% all the time. If you want to succeed at anything, if you want to be an Olympic athlete, if you want to start your own business, if you want to get a PhD, the most important time is just to start now putting 100% in. It doesn't mean you have to pick and already figure out what you want, but it's to get used to giving 100% to the activities you are doing. Now, moving on to college. High school had prepared me a lot for college. And that's really important, is to start early. So you have all of that preparation so that by the time you get into college, it's easy. You had already done it for 4 years, doing lots of different activities. And then in college, you get to hone in on the things that you learned to do well in high school. Whereas a lot of my peers, they would start trying to figure out what they wanted in college, which is totally fine. But imagine if you could start ahead 4 years earlier to figure out what you want to do. So in college, I realized I just enjoyed starting different things. So freshman year, this was my first semester there, and I just wanted to, it was my freshman class, I just wanted to kind of have some random fun. I took these Arduino chips and turned it so that I could connect it to the lamps on campus. And then the lamps then can just be turned on and off based on how bright it was outside. Literally freshman year dorm room project, and then showed it to the university, and they gave me about $10,000 for it, for what was essentially just a weekend worth of work. I was like, all right, that's kind of interesting, and it was practice. I was like, $10,000 is pretty awesome. I want to see if I can do more. So then, sophomore year, I went and worked with a couple of my friends from high school to develop this biomedical device for glaucoma patients. So instead of eye drops, it's an eye spray. And that, from those things, we ended up getting about a couple $100,000. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm making more money than my parents now. It's a good sign. And also this experience taught me to never forget the relationships you build early on in your life. Like even if you are in high school right now, you'll never know the kinds of relationships you'll have with the folks. You might hire them in the future. They might become your co-founder. You might start something in college with the people you're in high school with. For example, at Implug, our head of marketing is somebody I went to high school with. That person always left an impression in my mind of being somebody super diligent. And we sort of just stayed in touch, but I was always impressed with that person. And so when I knew that person was moving to LA, I immediately hired him. One thing that wasn't in the bio is that I was on the board, youth advisory board for Lady Gaga's foundation. And that was also something that I got as an opportunity when I was in high school. I was participating in this leadership conference and organization in high school, and I built a relationship with a person who was getting young people involved in government. And so this woman named Maya Nista, and I had just kept in touch with her. I basically knew her since I was 16, all the way to when I moved to LA to start Implug a couple of years ago. She reached out to me and she invited me to be on the board for Lady Gaga's foundation. And I was like, wow, that's so awesome. I met this person when I was in high school. So it also works both ways of you thinking about the people that you really admire in high school, keep them in mind. Always keep in mind because you may reach out to them. And then the other way around too, make sure that you leave a great impression on anyone that you work with. Because maybe 10 years down the road, they'll invite you to something really cool. Now then, junior year, I went and did also something totally different. I don't play video games, but I ended up starting this video game related company. How many of you guys play video games? Yeah, so you can monetize it. So if your parents are telling you to stop playing video games, you can tell them, no, I'm planning to start a video game company. So what I did was I started this company with a couple of friends who were really big video gamers and into it, and we created this website where male video gamers, or really any video gamers in general, could pay money to play with famous video gamers. And I made a bunch of money, and that was my senior year. And I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. Now, along the way, while I'm doing this, I want to go back to how important it is. It's really great individually to start whatever kind of projects you want, but if you want to build anything great, it always takes a team to make it happen. So even when you're working on individual projects, think about how you can build a network of people that support you. And that means getting involved in organizations. So for example, in college, some of the things I got involved with was, again, student government. So I was serving as the vice president for our student body, and that was an amazing opportunity for me to meet tons of students. Is this bothering people? No. Should I use, no? Okay, all right. All right. Because I can talk really loudly. I was a cheerleader. if the mic doesn't end up working out. What's also important is the relationships you build in college. So think about in college, all the people that you get to meet. You want to meet as many as possible. So you want to get involved in organizations that lets you meet lots of really, really different people. So I had a bunch of friends I hung out with in student government, but I also had a big group of friends from my sorority. And so I'll tell you, I hired both people from my sorority and from student government. And in college, one of the great reasons why to start a business is because you have basically an email list of thousands of students that you can spam and tell them, hey, download my app, or go visit my website. Or you just set up a booth outside of a classroom and start selling things. I did all of those things. I literally spammed my sorority's email list. I spammed student government. But it was such a great learning opportunity because in college, just like in high school, you can get away with a lot of things. You can really, break these spam laws that if you were in, like, after college, you would get fined by the government for it. But in college, you can do it. So if you want to break any rules, break as many rules now and in college, because it's called misdemeanor afterwards. So going back to the fact that all of this comes down to people. Whatever you start, whatever you do, to get good at anything, it's about surrounding yourself with people that do it even better than you. One of my favorite quotes that I like to live by is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So think about that one, because a lot of my friends are like, I need to get new friends. So you're the average. And so for me, what I do is I actually then spend a lot of my time with my investors. I spend a lot of time with people, other fellow entrepreneurs that are more successful than me. I will spend time with people that I enjoy learning from. I, of course, bring their average down. I don't tell them that part. But that's something that is always stuck in my mind when somebody told me that, is you really are influenced by the people you are surrounded with. So be extremely thoughtful of the people you're friends with and the people that you choose to spend time with. So that being said, because I got really good at meeting people, my senior year winter break holiday, I was in Boulder, Colorado, which is where I grew up. And for all the kids under 21, close your ears. I was at a bar, and when I was at the bar, I was not 21 at the time. Like I said, break rules when you're young, not when you're older. I was at the bar, and I saw this guy there, and he was pretty attractive. So I told my friend that I thought he was attractive, and my friend was like, "Oh, he's a famous biochemist." And I was like, "No way, I want to talk to him. I want to work with him." So, young people, there is something good to come out of being shallow at times. And so that person, Balaji, and I started talking that night, and I realized he was so smart. And I knew that if I wanted to do anything great, it always comes down to people, having great people to work with. So I immediately was like, we need to start working on something, like tomorrow. We need to immediately start working together. And this was over winter break, so I had a lot of free time. So use your free time. During winter break, don't go and hang out with your friends. Go start companies, right? and so I invited him over, and we started brainstorming. What did we want to build? And instead of actually listing out all these ideas that we had, I actually asked him, for me, I just like to build anything. You give me something, and I will turn it and monetize it. And so I asked him, what was he doing in his PhD research? And he was working with stem cells, and he was working with cartilage regeneration. And then we realized that one of the polymers he was working with could be turned into a protein stabilizer, meaning that for the vaccines, which are protein-based, you can actually eliminate refrigeration, make them temperature stable at room temperatures or even really hot temperatures. And I was like, this is awesome. And so I go back to school, and I spend all my nights, instead of going out and partying with my sorority, I got that over with freshman year. So get that out of your system freshman year, all the partying and stuff. And then I would spend all my nights just applying to grants, applying to business competitions. And there are tons of business competitions available. And so because I started freshman year, remember? I started freshman year applying to these different grants and trying to sell the technology. I got a lot of experience. Now I knew how to win these business plan competitions. So we started winning a lot of these. So much so that we had enough funding to actually start a company and keep it going for 3 years. And that I did my second semester, senior year, all in that time period. It was actually a lot easier than I thought because I had already spent high school trying to build and organize things, and then the first 3 years of college trying to build and organize things. So then I, of course, had to go find other really smart people don't be afraid to go approach anyone that you think in your high school or middle school that's really smart. Just approach them and say, I want to work on something together. And not being afraid to do that, because if you are a leader, if you want to build anything, it's about recognizing talent and being able to sell other people on your idea. So of course I was the creepy undergraduate student that would go hang out with in the graduate student center and just basically start chatting with all these chemists until I put together a team of top chemists that were graduate researchers, convinced them basically that by the time they graduate or get their PhD, that they would come and work for me, this totally uneducated non-chemist, took one chemistry class in high school person. But I was able to sell them on it because of the other things that I had done in college. All these other stuff I've worked on freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And so we started Nanxi, and then and then of course I had to actually learn some of the chemistry myself, and that was really interesting and fun. And then we formed into a company called Nanxi Bioscience. And then I was serving as a CEO as my senior year. And again, the great thing when you're a student is, especially when you start a company, is you can email all these executives at companies and they'll respond to you because they're like, oh my God, you're so cute. And you're emailing me, you're a student, I would be happy to meet with you and help you. See, once you're out of college, then it becomes creepy and you're just like that annoying person. So, again, take advantage of the fact that you're young and you can get away with anything. And so, of course, during my senior year, I started traveling around and raising money for the business. This was a competition that we did with Dell. And Dell ended up giving us, I think, $25,000 or something like that. I went, Duke University gave us $70,000. And it just started adding up more and more. And again, when you're a student, there's so many opportunities that colleges offer. And you don't even have to go to that college. I didn't go to Duke, but I applied to Duke's competition because I had a childhood friend who I went to elementary school with. She went to Duke. So I emailed her. I was like, hey, we haven't talked for 10 years, more, 13 years, but you want to be part of this team that I'm putting together and win some money at your school? And she's like, yeah, I sort of remember you. I think we were hanging out first grade. And then that's how we ended up winning money from Duke. Now, after we then got a bunch of other awards like Airbus and etc., yada yada. But this was really helpful to convince scientists that probably didn't think I was very qualified to join the team. I had to make sure, again, going back to the first lesson I learned, is you have to do the hard work. I couldn't just convince all of these really talented scientists to join me had I not set the foundation and did the work, which is to get all the funding to say, hey, I've got the funding for you, I will pay you way better salaries than if you went and did something else, and then convince them to join. Now, by the time I was about to graduate, I quickly realized that the next few years of the biotech company involved a lot of research and development, which I wasn't qualified to do. So I hired a CEO to run the biotech company and then move the company to Colorado, and then I wanted to start something totally different, something that was a little bit more of my background, which is in software. And so again,